Hey y'all, taking a break from talking about my books. This video is about what does it mean to honor your mother and father. That is something I have struggled with my whole life because my dad attempted to rape me. And so I've always been just curious, I guess, about what exactly God meant when he said that. I heard in a sermon once that what that means is honor your mother and father means if they're dying and they need you to care for them, you should. If they need money, you should give them money. What else? I don't know. Things like that. Yeah, if they need a place to live when they're old and retired, you should give them a place to live. But I will say I don't necessarily believe in retirement because the Bible says if a man shall not work, he shall not eat. Which means the Bible doesn't believe in retirement. That we all should be working literally until we die or until we can't walk. That's what I've always planned on doing. And I've always been dreading, honestly, old age and retirement. I remember I heard one time that the suicide rate for men after retirement is extremely high because they're taking away their purpose. You know, men need to work. Men should really never retire. My grandpa didn't retire till, I don't know, he was like 80 or something. He was doing like home repairs. He had like a home repair business, doing that part-time. Anyways, honor your mother and father. My youth pastor said you should respect and listen to anything that your parents say unless it is contrary to what God says. So primarily, you listen to God. Secondarily, you listen to your parents. And when kids are kids, they don't really have a choice because they're provided for by their parents. They're living in their parents' house. They're eating their parents' food. They're using their parents' money. So a child, basically, you could say that a child has to worship their parents because they're completely dependent on their parents. But once we branch out on our own, we start paying our own bills, buy our own car, get our own apartment, find a boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife, then, the Bible says a man shall leave his father and mother and be united to his wife. Why is that? Because the man is supposed to be the leader of the home, the spiritual leader, the priest, you could say. Like the Bible says that Sarah called Abraham Lord, and that we should do that too as Christian women. We should call our husband Lord. But the man has to leave and cleave. So a man has to leave his father and mother and be united to his wife. Because if you're under your parents' dictatorship, you cannot dictate your home, lead your home. Anyways, but how does a man do that? How does a man leave his father and mother, but also honor his mother and father? I don't know. But I will say my overall thought on honoring your mother and father just means if you're mad at them, don't chew them out. Don't cuss at them. Don't yell at them. Everybody has some anger, and I will say I've expressed my anger at least on 10 different occasions through text messages to my mom about various things. Just things that I don't need to talk about here because I'm going to honor my mom and not say what I have anger at her about. But everybody has anger because we all feel like, you know what? My mom and my dad, they should have been perfect, but they weren't. And we struggle with that imperfection. We're like, why was my dad not perfect? Why was my mom not perfect? Because nobody's perfect. But it's still something that we all struggle with and we all wrestle with. There was just a post from the White House about mental health. Speaking about mental health, everybody struggles with anger at their mom and their dad. But the Bible says all fall short of the glory of God. We all fall short. Like nobody is going to be perfect. No one behaves perfectly. No one follows the law perfectly. No one's a perfect Christian. My parents were Christian. At least I thought they were. But they certainly weren't perfect Christians. I know, it's quite ironic that my dad was a Christian, or at least I thought I was. He thought he was. We all thought he was. And then he molested me. And it's just like, I remember my brother said one time, I'm surprised that didn't turn you against the church because I saw his hypocrisy. But when you worship God, you don't worship God's people or people that think they're God's people. You worship God. So, don't let the hypocrisy of someone that you heard was Christian or they call themselves a Christian, it doesn't matter. Jesus said, you shall know them by their fruits. So if they have bad fruit, they're not a Christian, And that's something that's a struggle with family members. It's like, you might think that they're Christian. Just because they say they're Christian, that doesn't mean they're Christian. Just because anybody says they're Christian, that doesn't mean they're Christian. I think people just say that, like, oh, I'm an American, I'm Christian. Okay. Do you go to church? Do you listen to worship music? Do you watch sermons? Do you pray? The Bible says pray without ceasing. Do you pray without ceasing? Does God talk to you? Jesus said, my sheep hear my voice. Anyways, I think that's why, it's kind of tricky. Like, at some point, you have to make that transition. When you become an adult, you worship God, not your parents, Like, at some point, the worship of God has to replace the way that you used to worship your mom and your dad. And, you worship them because they fed you, they clothed you. Don't bite the hand that feeds you, right? But when you become an adult, you realize that all of your provision comes from God. There's a great sermon by Joel Osteen where he talks about your source, God is your source. And God might change your source at various times in your life to remind you that he is your source. It's not your parents, it's not your husband or your wife or a friend or anybody. God is your source. God makes sure that your needs are met. So the more mature you get as a person or in your walk with God, you realize that God is meeting all your needs, And then you should shift your worship to God and not worship your parents anymore. But it really helps if you can meet your own needs, make your own money, buy your own food, buy your own car, buy all your own stuff. And then, but see, the funny thing though is then a lot of people start to worship themselves and they turn into a narcissist. Like that one song, Independent Women. The shoes on my feet, I bought it. The watch I'm rocking, I bought it. Yeah, so a lot of people shift their worship from their parents to themselves, which you don't want to do that either. Yeah, maybe you did buy a lot of your own stuff. It doesn't mean that you should worship yourself. Ultimately, you got to recognize that God gave you the ability to work, to not be bedridden, to be able to go work a job, to be social enough to make friends, to, keep your coworkers as friends, which I know that that's not always easy. Work politics are interesting. I was basically an assistant manager at Papa John's for a while, and I think a lot of people wanted to tear me down or take my position, so good luck with that, all y'all that are out there with coworkers. I know it's not easy. Anyways, honor your mother and father. Don't disrespect them. Don't chew them out. Don't cuss them out. But you should not worship them. You should worship God. Okay? Remember that. God bless y'all. God bless. Bye.